Hello and welcome to Rando Rob. Each week on Rando Rob, I'll be showing and discussing one item from my large collection of collections. New shows appear every Monday, and throughout the week, I'll be adding older episodes of Rando Rob that were previously only available to my Patreon subscribers. You can watch episodes of Rando Rob on YouTube at youtube.com/Rob O'Hara. Just look for the Rando Rob playlist. Audio versions of the show are available on my website at podcast.robohara.com or through iTunes. Just search for Rando Rob. Thanks for watching or listening, and I hope you enjoy this vintage episode of Rando Rob. Hey, good morning, everybody. It's early Monday morning, and I'm recording this week's quick episode of Rando Rob. There's no shortage of things to show off in the rando items in Rob's room, and so today is something that I don't think most of you, this is a guess, I don't know, but I'm guessing most of you don't have access to or haven't seen. But let me pull the item out first, and then we're going to have a little quick lesson, and we're going to do all kinds of fun stuff on this episode. So, this is the item. Can you tell what that is? I'm trying to cover up parts that won't give away immediately what it is, but there you can see probably now. This is a lock. This is a lock that would go in your front door, but as you can see, it is completely clear, and you can see all the pins and tumblers. And the reason it is clear is because it is made for practicing picking locks. So the first thing I will tell you is that, as you can see right here, I have a set of keys for this. And if we put this, let's see, this is going to be a whole episode of me hitting the microphone, so forgive me right off the bat. If we take this key right here and insert it right side up, oh, not that, that's the master. Here we go. Take this key. And as you can see, if you watch, those little tumblers will bump up one at a time as the key goes through until everything lines up. And once everything lines up, the key turns. This is just like the lock in your house. This is identical, probably to the lock that's in your front door, maybe. So, let's talk a little bit about how basic locks work. And then let's talk about how picking locks work. What you're seeing there inside this, let's see if I can draw this real quick. Here's oh, this marker sucks. Next week on Rando Rob, we're going to be using better markers. All right, let's try this with a different marker. Oh, that marker's great, except for it's brown. I try to get black ones, but okay. This is your little tumbler for your lock, and the key is going to go in right here. Boop, boop, boop. Pretty simple so far. And what you have in here is the inside piece that will only turn when all those little bits line up. And so I'm going to kind of show you what it looks like without a key. Boop, 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 boop. Boop. Well, that's a little one. That's a bad drawing. Boop. Okay. Well, this is not a very good drawing. Okay, so here's what you have here. See if you can see that. You've got 5 pins at the bottom, and each one of those pins is a different height than where the line is across. So each one of these is actually 2 pins on top of each other. So this is 2 pins, and there's a shear point in between the two. That's a tiny one. That's a larger one. So they're all different heights. And above it, there are springs holding these things down. So what happens is when you put, so the springs hold it down, and since those things aren't lined up with anything, the lock won't turn because they're blocking the mechanism that makes it turn. So, all right, I'm going to do another little drawing here. And this is your house key going in here. This is a pretty bad drawing. And so now what we have, draw little springs on here, is that each one of those little pins is a different length, but they line up to different parts of the key. That's why your key has those little different bumps on them, right? And so when you put your key into the lock, it pushes all those little pins up that are different heights. And notice how there's a clean break all the way through the middle there? That is where, as we draw a bigger picture here, the tumbler is. And the tumbler can now turn because there's a break all the way across in those 5 pins. Okay? Now, there is, in a moment, I will explain to you the basics of lock picking. But now, with that in mind, I want you to look at this again. Notice, I don't know how well that will focus there, but okay, we've got the springs at the top, right? And then at the very bottom of the springs, you can see the top of little pins right there. And then we've got the tumbler here, right? So this tumbler, if we put our key in halfway, wrong side. We put the key in, let's put it into the first pin, and let's see if you can see this. You see it move up? But I can't turn it. Why can't I turn it? Because all these other ones are not locked up. I mean, they're not bumped to where the break in the pins meets the shear line of the tumbler. Does that make sense? So as we move, you can see these things moving up and down. Boop, boop, boop. And the springs always keep them down on the right. But look at that. When you get the key all the way in, notice how they all line up. And now the break in between the bottom pins, I mean, where the pins are, notice, I mean, since they're all, even with the tumbler now the tumbler is able to turn. And as you pull the key out, can you see how all 5 of those things there, all 5 of the pins at the bottom? So you're just looking at 2 things. There's a pin and there's a spring holding it in place. As we pull the key out this way, start watching from this end of the lock down here. And so as we pull it out, you'll see the springs push them back down. Now it won't turn because those tumblers, those pins, are blocking this thing from turning. They're stuck in holes, right? Okay. So there we go. Look, now they're all lined up again, and it turns. So you push the key in. It pushes the pins up to the shear line. The shear line, once it's clear all the way down, this is a 5-pin lock. Once all 5 pins have cleared the shear line, the tumbler can turn. That's how a key works. That's how not every, but that's how basic keys work. Now, I'm going to draw a slightly different picture. I'm going to draw a picture of it as we're looking in the keyhole. So and obviously you won't be able to see all the pins because they would all be lined up, right? But there's a little hole in the end of the tumbler, right? And then I'm going to draw the pin kind of right next to it, and there's the spring holding it down. So obviously this won't turn, right? Because, and actually that's not, it won't turn because the pin's kind of blocking the hole there, and the key hasn't been put in, right? But here's what could happen. When we push the pin up, well, first of all, what we want to do is we want to use what's called a torsion bar. Now think about how the key in your house, how the lock is straight up and down, right? Hello. Oh, thank you very much. So, the tumbler, I just got delivered a cheese stick. When you look at the keyhole on your front door, it goes straight up and down. But you could turn it just a tiny bit, like put it in a bind. Does that make sense? Turn it just slightly. See how you can do that? And then imagine if you could push one of those pins up. Now this is exaggerated. It's not turned that much. It's turned just a little bit. Okay? But you kind of got it in a bind. It's like you put your key just a little bit in the lock and you're trying to turn it. So it turns just a little bit. You're putting a little pressure on it, right? And then take that first pin and push it up, right? And so what happens is that pin, if you do it right, will push up and pop onto that little ledge and it'll get stuck there. It won't go back in the hole like it's supposed to because you're putting pressure on this and turning it, right? Now, if you were to let this go, if you were to turn this back just a little bit, that thing would pop back down in and all the pins would be safe. But if you could turn that just a little bit and push that pin up, it would rest right on that edge. I mean, we're talking about, a 16th of an inch. It's a delicate process, but you could balance that thing right there. And if you could do that while you're applying pressure to this thing, and then you could do the second pin and the third pin and the fourth pin and the fifth pin, that lock would open because now you've got all the pins pushed up. And normally the spring always pushes them down, but you've got that tumbler turned just a little bit, and so it can't go back down. It's sitting right on the lip of that. How do we do that? How do we pick that lock? Well, that is some of today's fun toys. This is a very nondescript looking little pouch, but I just dumped the contents of it out right before we started here, and you can see that there's a whole bunch of fun little tools in here. But the very, very most basic tools that you need, I will show you 3 items here. This, by the way, everything I'm doing here is completely legal. If you go unlock your neighbor's door while they're not home, you're going to have problems. But if you buy locks and you play around with locks and you have padlocks that you want to play with or practice locks like that or whatever, it's completely legal and very fun. It's a lock picking is a rewarding hobby. I don't have the time to do it anymore. I don't have time to get good at it, and I'm not as good as I used to be at it. This is the first thing here, and this is called a torsion bar. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do, just because my background is so busy. I'm going to wipe off this whiteboard and just kind of use it just so I can hold some things in front of it here. But the first thing that we have is this torsion bar, which is, there's nothing special about it. It is basically a piece of metal with 2 bins, one on each side. The second thing that we have is a pick. This is the world's simplest pick right here. There's no pick simpler than this pick. Now I want you to imagine reaching into that lock and pushing those little tumblers up one by one. This is lockpicking 101. Finally, this is the pick of amateurs and one of my favorites. This pick is called a rake. Now, if you want to practice and learn lockpicking, you get a pick like this, and you will be pushing those little pins up, and you will feel when they click, and it's like a puzzle that you're solving that you can't see. You can only feel it with your fingers. Then you can only feel the feedback that you're getting from the other end of this pick. But a rake, what it does, this is the brute force method. You put that tension on the lock, and instead of gently and skillfully moving each of those pins up one at a time, you're going to do this. And you're going to be bumping those pins, and hopefully you will bump all the pins, all 5 pins, into place. Now, I am way out of practice, and unfortunately, this particular lock is not very easy to bump pick, so I probably will not be able to do it. But I just want to show you the technique. Now, If you've ever watched any television show or any movie ever where somebody picked a lock and they only put one thing in the lock, it's fake. You have to have two things in this lock to pick a lock. Why? Because remember I told you we need torsion? So the torsion for this lock, here's our torsion bar. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put this in here in the lock, in the bottom part of the lock where we don't need to be. And this gets a little difficult where you have to have either a third hand or a finger or something. Now, normally you wouldn't need that because this lock would be suspended in a door or something, right? But now what we have to do is apply torsion or tension. And we're going to press down on that with a finger here. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to hold it like this. Now if you apply too much, it'll get in a bind and it'll never go. And now, I mean, this is almost impossible for me to demonstrate because there's just so much in the way at this point. Darn it. If I turn it this way, which this would be doing it left-handed and this will never work either. But if I were trying to do this, and I cannot do this left-handed, but once we have tension in there, what we're going to do, let me do it this way and then I'll flip it around, boop, 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 is so the trick is you got to get both these things into the lock at the same time. So you want the tension bar, torsion bar down as much as possible. And actually, I'll just get the rake here. And now put the rake in the top half here. And now you can see I have both things here in the lock. And now what I would do if this were a door is sit here and do this. Now what you can kind of see, once I get it done here, I didn't get them all, but let me show you. And when I let the tension off, watch what happens. I don't know if you could hear that because it was too far away from the mic. Let me reset a couple of these pins here. Boop, 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 boop. Again, this is not, this takes no skill, more or less. This takes a little bit of practice and a little bit of luck for getting a lock this way. But again, I'm applying tension, so I'm turning that tumbler just a little bit, trying to get those pins to stick on the shear line. And let me get a few of them stuck here. Now, I don't have them all again, but when I let the tension off, see if you can hear this. So I had 3 of the 5. There was 3 clicks there. 1, 2, 3. So when I let the tension off, they all popped back in the hole. That's the basics of lockpicking. Lockpicking 101 is putting tension on. And again, I have opened several people. I've opened a lot of stuff with a rake. I used to practice on the front door of my house at the old house all the time. I could open the front door of my house in 5 seconds. It was a really loose lock. And so literally put a tension bar in there, run the rake in a couple times, and the door would just pop open, which was a little scary. You sleeping at night with the front door locked when you know that somebody who, by the way, everything that I'm going to show you here is available online, and most of it came from Amazon. But that is, with a rake, you can open a lot of front doors. You can open file cabinets at work. I've done that. And again, not, to break into anything, but, we had a file cabinet one time that somebody had lost a key and they'd left. They'd quit. We had a file cabinet nobody could get into, and nobody had the master key to pull the core. So, we opened it up and remove the lock once it was open. So, but with a rake and a tension thing, you can open a lot of cheap locks. You can pretty much open any padlock that you would get at Lowe's or Home Depot or Walmart, anything like that. You'll be amazed once you mess around with it for 5 minutes how many things that you thought were safe behind a lock are not very safe. Now, one time I saw these demonstrated on Amazon, and I thought, well, that doesn't seem legal. And then I looked. I saw it on YouTube, and so I went to Amazon, and you could order these. I don't know if they're still there, but these are what are called key jigglers, and this is a set. Each one of these keys is for a different car manufacturer. Now, they're not labeled, but there is a couple that work with Chevy, a couple that work with Ford, a couple that work with Toyota and Honda, and each one of these is a different shape designed to work with specific locks for key manufacturers. Now, these are not, again, this is less of a science and more of an art, but I've opened friends' car doors that were locked with these. These will open. It's easier to do, and it works better on older cars, but they're more for doors and door locks and trunk locks and things like that than ignitions. But I've never tried an ignition on somebody because raking a lock, as you can imagine, you're rubbing metal on metal. And so there is a chance, if you're doing that sawing motion, that you could be damaging, shaving bits of metal off of something. So I don't do that, especially on other people's stuff. But if you can imagine something like this is designed to be a generic shape that would fit into, either maybe a Isuzu or a Honda trunk or something like that. And you would put this in and kind of wiggle it while you're trying to turn it. And it would open right up. So if you know which one of these goes with which car or whatever, and it came with a cheat sheet, they're not actually labeled, but again, not sure that this is something they should sell on Amazon, but they do. Those are called auto jigglers. And then last year for my birthday, my friend Jeff got me this little box, and these are basically master keys, if you can see that are designed to work on basically office furniture. So, office drawers. I got one of these to work on a one of those letter bar things, where people, like a message board, and it had been abandoned and nobody knew how to get into it. So we opened it up with that, and we're able to get the old flyers and stuff out of it and update the information. But these are basically master keys for different things. Now, this isn't really lock picking, but they are ways to get locks open. And so you can see they basically look like basic keys, but they're keyed in a way where they will work, depending on the brand and the manufacturer. And there's half a dozen in here, different ones. Again, these are all just ordered online. There's a little keychain if you want to put them all on a keychain and have them with you. Not sure that's a good idea to be walking around work with that. But anyway, I have actually, a black Crown Royal bag. And so for all my lockpick stuff here at the house, I throw that in there. Now, I don't, there are certain things that I don't do. I'll tell you one thing I don't do is I never take any of these, it's been years, or a few years, I guess now, but I don't take them to the airport. I figure that's just asking for questions by the TSA. You go through an airport, go through a metal detector and have a whole bunch of strange lock-picking stuff on you that might get you questioned. Again, it's not illegal, but depending on where you are and who you are and where you're going and what you're doing, it could be it could lead to some interesting questions. So I put my picks in there. Now I have a separate lockpick kit that I got that has I think it has 81 picks, and I've used 3 of them, and maybe 4. But there's all different kinds of picks. They have different tension bars for different kinds of padlocks. They have different kinds of picks for different kinds of locks. All just for different applications. But I'm a pretty basic guy. I used to sometimes while I was sitting here waiting for things to download or listening to podcasts or whatever, I'd sit here and play with my little clear lock and play with my picks and go through and again, it's kind of relaxing, and it's like I guess a way that I've described it before is it's like solving a Rubik's Cube with a blindfold. I mean, it's a puzzle, but once the picks are in the hole, you can't see it. So you're completely blind, and you're just going off the way things feel. And you can, like I said, you can feel with the end of the pick and feel if a pin is snapped into place or if it's still hanging down, and if it's up past the shear line. But it's very tactile, and it can be relaxing and it can be frustrating. But it just depends on why you're doing it. And for me, it was just kind of a fun hobby, and like I said, I haven't had a lot of time to mess around with it as of late, but it was always something fun to do, and I'd like to get back into it, but turns out I got a lot of hobbies, and this one's a little down on the list. So anyway, hope everybody is having a great week. As I mentioned earlier, on the Patreon, I'm working on figuring out a way to set up a Zoom call. Maybe we'll do that on a weekend. I want to do one where it's early in the day, and I want to do one where it's late in the evening. I may alternate each month or something like that. But, just so everybody can check in, just so everybody can see what's going on. We can ask questions. We can talk. We can do all kinds of fun stuff. So anyway, that's it for this week's Retro Rob. Thanks for checking in, and I will see all you guys soon.